So I just want to introduce Cathryn to you. Cathryn Castle is, for over 20 years, been the editor of Dive Training Magazine. I'm sure all of you have read at least a couple of those. If you haven't, you better get on it real quick because there's a lot of good stuff in there. She's also a member of the Women Divers Hall of Fame for her contribution to tissue studies. She has a book. There's a lot of other things going on besides. And so I am going to pass you over to Cathryn, who's going to give you a cultural guide to the Caribbean today. Welcome, Cathryn.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good morning, everyone. And thanks to Carrie in the background, who's making all the wheels of Zoom turn for us. I'm coming to you very live. Just finished a workout, haven't even brushed my teeth. So I'm really glad that you can only see me and not smell me. This is one instance in which social distancing is probably working in your favor. Again, I'm Cathryn Castle-Garcia, and I have dual roles in the scuba diving industry and also in the yachting industries. And this morning's talk, I want to talk to you about the cultural guide to the Caribbean. I lived in the Caribbean full-time for almost a dozen years, basing out of St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and traveled quite a lot in yachting, doing boat deliveries and some charter work. So I kind of feel like I came of age in the Caribbean, and it's a place that will always have my heart. In addition to working in the diving and yachting industries there, I also worked as an EMT at the local hospital. So I got a very in-depth relationship with the people of the Caribbean. And I think that that's what a lot of us miss when we just touch and go when we're visiting islands and we stay at particularly like an all-inclusive resort and we go dive, eat, sleep, and leave. So I'm going to give you a little bit more of the culture of the Caribbean. And hopefully when Cheryl and her team help you put together your next Caribbean vacation, this will be of help to you. So bear with me just a second while I share my screen and stop my video and do that and do that. I'm supposed to start the slideshow now. Oh, come on. It's getting it smaller instead. Hang on a second. I'm going to undo this and start again. Sorry. Stop the share. Bear with me, you guys. I did this in practice several times and it worked. So hang on just a second. Don't. Okay. There. Now I need to find a way to go back to the share. Oh, Carrie, I might need you to help me. Hang on. It's
all right. What's up?
All right, it's not letting me go large for some reason. It only gets smaller. So if anybody's got, oh, there we go. Yay! Okay, so Cultural Guide to the Caribbean. Normally, this is a presentation that I give along with my husband, Captain Guy Garcia, when we're at a show. But at any rate, you just got me this morning because we couldn't figure out the both of us doing this. And I want to start by letting you know, we'll talk about the diving later, but Cheryl and her team are experts at all the various destinations and resorts and diving. So I'm going to dive into a different part of it, meaning the people, the food, the music, and the culture. And I'm going to start with a bit of a lengthy geography lesson because a lot of people don't know actually what the Caribbean is. It's more than 7,000 islands, islets, keys, and cays. You can say it either way, key or cay, doesn't matter, and reefs. It's comprised of 28 different nations and 3 main island groups. Some people will argue that there's 4, but for my purposes, I'm calling the Bahamas an island group. That's 700 islands that most of us know about. And then the Greater Antilles and the Lesser Antilles. And this is where that whole area is on the map. So starting with the Bahamas actually stretches more than 750 miles from the Florida coast, nearly to Haiti. So it starts about off of West Palm Beach, and then it goes all the way down towards Haiti. So this is what we would consider the upper Caribbean range. Next, we've got the Greater Antilles. And this is Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola. And Hispaniola is actually two countries. It is Haiti to the west and the Dominican Republic to the right or to the east. Dominican Republic is not to be confused with Dominica, and I'll show you that in just a second. Then we've also got Puerto Rico that rounds out the eastern edge of the Greater Antilles. I think it's really important to know where you're going when you're going someplace. So that's why I'm spending a little bit of time on this. Next is the Lesser Antilles. And this is going to run from sort of north to south in an eastern curve. The Lesser Antilles is basically everything that's not a part of the Bahamas, okay? And then the Greater Antilles, or if there's a couple little island nations that are not part of the Lesser Antilles, but those are places that are typically off limits to our visits anyway. So within the Lesser Antilles, it breaks up into two different island groups. The Leeward Islands, which are away from the wind, they're on the lee side of the prevailing wind. That comes with British Virgin Islands, Anguilla, or some people call it Anguilla, but it's actually Anguilla, St. Martin, Saba, and St. Eustatius, St. Bartholomew, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Guadeloupe, and Dominica. Now, remember I talked about Dominican Republic over here, and then way, way, way down over here, we have Dominica. So these things are two different places. A lot of people get that confused, and especially when you're trying to book flights, if you're one of those people that tries to do it on your own, be careful with that. You might end up in the wrong place. Now, the Windward Islands of the Lesser Antilles is Martinique, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago. So, and Trinidad and Tobago is all the way down at the tip of South America. And next, we have the Leewards. This is Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. It also is part of the little islands that are federal dependencies of Venezuela, which we cannot go to. Those are off limits to us. So this gives you a little bit of the breakdown of what, oh, excuse me, went the wrong way, what the islands are comprised of. One of the first questions I get when I'm doing this presentation is, how do you actually say it? What's the correct pronunciation? Is it Caribbean, Caribbean, or Caribbean? And my answer, it doesn't matter, because you're there, or you're going there, or you're thinking about going there. Tomato, tomato. What's cool is that it's a fantastic place to visit, and call it however you like, and let people correct you as they will. It just doesn't matter. Now, a little more geography lesson here. This whole area is considered the West Indies. That's from just about off of the Florida coast in the Bahamas, all the way over to Belize, down to Panama, across Colombia, Venezuela, and then back around up again, the whole island chain. So this is the West Indies in the Caribbean Sea. Big area. Matter of fact, let me just look at my notes here. 2% of the Caribbean region is uninhabited, and the size ranges in each of these nations, size ranges from about 40,000 square miles for Cuba, all the way down to 5 square miles for the island of Saba. So we're talking about a very vast area with a lot of different little land masses in it, a lot of little different island groups. And the Caribbean, or Caribbean, was named after the Carib people. The West Indies is because Columbus was really mixed up. He thought he'd reached India, or at least the outer reaches of Asia. And that's why it's called the West Indies. It's just a typo for all of us. It's a name that stuck, but he's nowhere near the West Indies. Now, people who live in the geographical region of the West Indies are referred to as West Indians. They'll also be For instance, St. Thomaians, Crusians, if you're in St. Croix, Trinis, if you're in Trinidad, St. Catitians or Dominicans, if you're in Dominica. But everyone who lives in the geographical region of the West Indies is referred to as a West Indian. It's very diverse. Obviously, with this amount of natural habitat and range, you've got a huge amount of biodiversity. You've got everything from volcanic areas and sky cloud farms, or what they call, what do they call it? Cloud farms, cloud forests, excuse me. A lot of waterfall, so rich, lush, humid, lots of water, to practically arid, barren rocks, little bits of coral that are sticking up out from the sea and then become islands. So a huge amount of diversity there, also in the flora and fauna. In terms of native species, over 6,500 plants, 41 different mammals, 163 birds, close to 500 reptiles, not that many amphibians, only 170 amphibians, and at least 65 to 70 freshwater fish. And in terms of marine species, I couldn't get anybody to give me an accurate number of what the marine species are. So I just put a big question mark there, and I'm going to invite you to go count them for yourself, because there's a lot going on under the water, as we all know. Cultural diversity is the next big thing. One of the things here that I want to mention is within the cultural diversity, it's the only place in the world like it. It has a huge history, and I'll just touch on it. But basically, 1492, you know who sailed the ocean blue, blah, 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 Columbus. By 1493, Spain and Portugal decided to split the West Indies between them. And that didn't last very long before Spain said, never mind, Portugal, we've got this. By 1600, Spain's hold weakens. And now you have all the other countries coming in and running their flag up the pole. Dutch, English, and French all made really big moves between the 1600s and the mid 1700s. For instance, between 1664 and 1674, it's only a 10-year period, St. Eustatius passed the flag back and forth between the British and the Dutch probably 10 times. It's refuted to be more than that. So I'm going to say more than 10 times, but that's a whole lot of Pledge of Allegiance changing. And it just shows you the turmoil that these places went through as the Caribbean was developing. Part of the reason that all this was happening is the richness of the Caribbean. The colonizers came in and wanted to grow coffee plantations, cotton plantations, and also sugarcane. And all three of these crops are very, very labor intensive. And at the time, slavery was the labor of the day. It's estimated that over 5 million slaves were brought from West African nations. And they weren't there as tourists. They were forced into slave labor, and they basically built the industries of cotton, coffee, and sugar plantations on their backs. And after the French Revolution happened, a lot of indentured servants came in. So you had a lot of people with the various fighting that was going on. You had French coming in the by the mid 1800s, slavery was abolished. It was officially abolished in 1834, but it took quite a while for that to actually take hold. There was a lot of turmoil when slavery was abolished. And then you had, by the mid 1840s into the mid 1850s, you had the Great Famine. So now you've got people coming in from Ireland and France. And in addition to having slavery abolished, we started a new trend, which was indentured servitude, bringing workers from India. So this is a big time between the late 1700s and the mid 1800s. you've got a lot more happening with influx of workers. So this is where everything got culturally mixed. By the end of the 1800s, you've got African, Dutch, English, French, Indian, Irish, Portuguese, and Spanish all living together. And everybody's bringing their history, their culture, their recipes, their music, and their way of life into these Caribbean nations. I'll start with the food. You've got literally every kind of food happening in the Caribbean. And a lot of it actually comes from slave origins and from the pirate days. When the ships were loaded, one of the things I really love, it's called a Johnny cake. You find it in every Caribbean island in one derivation or another. And in the South, you call it a biscuit. But in the Caribbean, a Johnny cake is fried dough. It's an unleavened bread that people eat with a meal. Well, originally they were journey cakes, and it was dough that was fried and packed in lard in barrels. And you'll still find that at some of the pop-up shops in the Caribbean. A lot of other food choices. Let me just touch on that just a little bit more. The Creole stuff is what you'll find coming from Africa all the way up the Caribbean chain into the southern United States, and particularly with a lot of African French Creole gumbos, etouffees, jambalayas, that sort of thing, and also a lot of curries as well. And next I'm going to just touch on the music of the Caribbean. A lot of African drumming happening within Caribbean music, and that particularly is going to be the drum beat of all the festivals. Drumming, street marching, all of that, it is basically coming from African origins to drive carnival, festival, fiesta, gumbe, junkanoo, mas. These are the names for all the different cultural celebrations that you're going to be able to enjoy when you visit the Caribbean. The word carnival is actually derived from the Latin carnevale, meaning farewell to flesh. And this gets its cultural origins in the pre-Lenten feasts before a 40-day period of fasting, which we just finished in preparation for the Christian Easter holiday. It actually has pre-Christian roots as well, if you go back far enough. But the idea was we're going to say farewell to meat, farewell to flesh, and go into this reflective period. But we're going to party before we do that. And then we're going to go into sort of a reflective period during the 40 days that lead up to Easter. Mardi Gras, which everybody's heard of and thinks comes from New Orleans, is French for Fat Tuesday. So the Tuesday before you start the Lenten season, you eat up all the fat in your house, basically. You go around just eating and celebrating. And then the next day you start your diet, so to speak, whether it's your physical diet or your spiritual diet. And you'll see the French influence in Mardi Gras throughout the Caribbean. Again, back to the music. Everybody's got the drums, the tambourines, and a whole lot of cowbell going on. That is the drum beat of these cultural celebrations in the Caribbean. In many of the islands, Carnival starts with a massive street party called Juve, and it's basically opening day, and in a lot of places it's called Jump Up, and it typically starts in the small hours of the morning and goes through to sunset, and then everyone gathers for these big breakfasts, and that's when the eating and the drinking and the liming starts. And it's not just happening one time of year throughout the Caribbean. I'll get to that later. But if you can plan your scuba diving vacation to the Caribbean to coincide with some of these parties, I definitely recommend it. It's an adult only thing. Don't bring your kids to Juve. But I definitely recommend it if you can get into one of these parties. It's a great opportunity for you to meet the actual people who live there. Go to the food festivals, go to the parties. There's a lot of different tastings that happen during this time where you're off the McDonald's path now and you're into somebody's backyard kitchen, and you're going to have experiences that you just cannot get if you stick to the all-inclusive path of we're only going to go to the places we know. I invite you, especially during an island's carnival time, to really seek out the opportunity to meet the local people, because it's when they're at their very best and they really want to share with you their food, their music, and their culture. So go ahead and try the stuff that you've never tried before. And this particularly, you'll find these in practically every island. Whether they're called meat pâtés or patties or the filled Johnny cake, most everybody has got a delicious fried bread thing that's got a meat or vegetable filling. In Trinidad, this is mostly called a roti. Roti is a curry that's wrapped in an unleavened bread, and it's fantastic. And I got to tell you, I have eaten off of the food trucks everywhere in the world and survived. So don't be afraid if the thing looks a little dodgy. Just get in there and give it a try, and you might be very, very much surprised. Again, this is an opportunity to go hang out with the local people and let them tell you their story and let them teach you a little bit about what they do. And if you haven't carved open a coconut, you can have a quick lesson on that. Be careful with it. But I did mine, the one you see here in this photo, I actually finished it off and I did a good job with that. And next up is the booze. Sugarcane is all basically there for rum production. A lot of rum production throughout the Caribbean, and it's kind of different everywhere you go. If you're going to partake in the alcohol tastings, for instance, if you order a mixed drink in the islands, typical, hey, I'd like a rum and Coke. Well, if you order a rum and Coke in the Caribbean, chances are you're going to get a rum with a splash of Coke. So when I'm ordering, I order a Coke with rum. Lodges, give me a Coke with rum, you know. Don't give me the rum with a splash of Coke. In a lot of instances, the rum is less expensive than the Coca-Cola. The rum is local, the Coca-Cola has to be shipped in. So all I'm gonna say there is enjoy, but be careful, because your drinks might be mixed a little stronger than you're used to at home. Essentially, what I'm inviting you to do here is look for the color of the Caribbean. And the color isn't just in the buildings and in nature and on the reef. The color is actually with the people that live there. This was a mock cover that we looked at using for Dive Training Magazine in the March-April issue. We ended up using a different cover because this one just didn't pop as much as we wanted it to. We ended up with a little bit more of a colorful cover. But the article, There's a Party Going On in the Caribbean, is in the March-April issue of Dive Training Magazine, and it gives you a cultural guide to carnival celebrations, which I'm going to overview here. But if you'd like to get a copy of this article and you don't have it, my email address is in the comments, and I would like to have you just email me and I'll send you a PDF file by email of the guide. This is what the opening spread looks like. But it goes a little bit more detail into the culture of the islands and also lists the various celebrations that happen throughout the year. One thing that's important to know is a little bit of the local language. This gives you a tiny little glossary of what's going on, but essentially when you're greeting someone in the islands, if it's good morning, you say good morning. If it's night, you say good night. Good morning, good night. Good morning, good night. We would typically say good night when we're saying goodbye, but good night is the greeting in the evening. And if it's somebody that you know, and you're just passing on the street, you can just say, all right, all right, all right. Like, all right, everything's good. Alaya is a group. Bacchanal would be any one of the celebrations that you're going to. Yabamse, if someone invites you to back up yabamse, they're asking you to dance, and basically shake your butt. So back up yabamse is shake your butt. Calypso is the music of Caribbean music of carnival. And it's largely political commentary that you and I won't necessarily understand because we don't live there. But they're essentially railing on whatever they're railing on, the economy, the government, the weather, the political structure, illness, fatigue. It's the Caribbean way of venting. And people get together with Calypso when they cool out. Cooling out is just to hang out with your friends or to lime. A duppy is a ghost or a spirit. And there's a lot of ghost folklore in the Caribbean. So if you hear people talking about duppies or jumbies, the jumbi dangachu, a jumbi is essentially also a ghost or a spirit. And a mako jumbi is a person on stilts. They're dressing up as a ghost for carnival. And if you get a chance to participate in carnival, in a lot of instances, there'll be these little cultural exchange areas during a carnival where you will get to dress up and get painted and walk on tiny stilts and just play at it on being a local. Patois is a French Creole dialect, and it's a mixture of African and Spanish and French language that's really beautiful. I used to be able to speak it quite well, and now I can only say a few words, but at any rate, it's good to know a little bit of the lingo and to try and reach out, particularly if you're in an area that has with a dependent rule, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. But right now I want to go over just a brief glimpse of all the different festivals that happen, just so you kind of get it that, gosh, there's something happening there all the time. A lot of these have been canceled due to the COVID-19 virus, but I'm going to brush through them anyway. I thought about taking this out of the presentation today, but I left it because I want you to know these things are coming back. The people of the Caribbean are not going to give up on their celebrations ever. So these things will be rescheduled, or they'll be back again next year and they'll start up. But just look at it. You've got jazz, you've got the ocean, you've got rum, you've got crop over, which crop over festival in Barbados is basically celebrating the harvest. It's when the sugarcane would have been brought in. And back in the day, the slaves got freed for a few days so that they could help, after they brought in the crop, have a little bit of a party around it. But when you're planning your vacation, if you plan to have visit during times where a big carnival is just about to happen or is happening, you're going to really enrich in your experience. Bahamas has Junkanoo all during the summer. That happens practically every weekend. St. John has an amazing carnival around the 4th of July. Dominica actually has Dive Fest, along with Barbados has Dive Fest. And these are scuba diving specific festivals that if you're a diver, you really want to be cluing into this, because these are fantastic celebrations. Again, carnival all over the place. Different emancipation dates, like the BVI has theirs to celebrate their emancipation. And I'll get to that in a little bit more as well. Grenada has Spice Mas, or Spice Mas. That is a festival of all the different spices that are unique to the area. So there's food and cooking contests and all sorts of demonstrations. St. Lucia has Dive and Adventure Week. I was actually supposed to attend that this past September, but Hurricane Dorian squashed that. Cayman Islands has the opportunity for you to mix with the greats of the scuba diving world with their Scuba Diving Hall of Fame. Curacao, flavors of Curacao, and it goes on and on. Again, cultural heritage, food. Anybody who remembers the really heyday of the Cayman Islands Pirates Week Festival, those were absolutely fantastic. It's still happening to a smaller scale, but if you get a chance to visit the Cayman Islands for Pirates Week, I definitely recommend it. And again, it goes on and on through the year. And basically, the message that I want to bring with this little presentation is go dive and have fun with it, but try to incorporate a sense of place, of where you are. Instead of going to the hotel restaurant and having the cheeseburger and fries that you could just as easily get at home, go off the beaten path a little bit and take a chance on something that you've never heard of. You know, you don't have to have goat water or cowfoot soup, but go try around the edges on tasting and experiencing some things that are probably going to be very new to you. And I'm going to finish up this part of my conversation with just a couple more things, but I'm going to end the screen share now. So I'm going to stop the share and start my video again, which I just lost. Escape, hang on a second, I'll be right back with you. And now you got me again, woohoo! So a couple of things that I didn't go over that I think are important, and I have to read my notes from here. In terms of the countries that you're going to be visiting, some of these are independent nations, which means they're self-governing and they're on their own. Most of these islands are all English speaking, even though the official language might not be English. So the breakdown of dependent Caribbean countries includes, from France, you've got Guadeloupe, Martinique, St. Bart's or St. Bartholomew, and St. Martin. So when you visit those countries, you're actually visiting France. You're visiting a territory of France. In the Netherlands, you have Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, St. Martin, Saba, and St. Eustatius. So you're entering the Netherlands when you visit those nations, those islands. The United States is the Puerto Rico and the United States Virgin Islands. So these are American flagged islands. And you're actually not leaving the United States when you get on a plane and leave the North American continent. You're landing on American soil. And you don't even need a passport to visit Puerto Rico or the US Virgin Islands. Although I strongly suggest you always travel with your passport, particularly when you're going to the US Virgin Islands, because the British Virgin Islands are only 13 miles away and you might like to plan a day trip there. So always travel with your passport. United Kingdom, Britain, is Anguilla, Bermuda, British Virgin Islands, and the Cayman Islands. Also Montserrat and Turks and Caicos. And little trivia, Turks and Caicos is actually not in the Caribbean. It's off to the east a little bit all by itself, but for divers' sake, we call that, we lump them into the Caribbean. English is the official language of Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, British Virgin Islands, Cayman Islands, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, Montserrat, Puerto Rico, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Martin, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad, Tobago, Turks and Caicos, and the USVI. So again, you're leaving home, you might be going to a different island nation, but English is still widely spoken. This is what makes traveling to the Caribbean also very easy if you're a first-time traveler, if you're new to traveling abroad. Spanish will be used in Cuba, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico. French is the official language of Guadeloupe, Haiti, Martinique, St. Bart's, French Guiana, and St. Martin. Haitian Creole is also an official language of Haiti, which makes me very happy that they're still recognizing their roots. And Dutch is the official language of the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Martin, and also Suriname. And then Papiamento is also used as an official language in Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And it's beautiful. So you can actually go, if you're visiting the ABC Islands, there are some cultural exchanges where you can go and learn a little bit of Papiamento. And I'd really suggest that. So next, let's see, we're 40 minutes in, close to 40 minutes into our conversation. What I'd like to do now is open up a little bit of conversation here about any questions that you might have. I see we have over 100 people. So Carrie, you might have to help me with this. If we're allowed to do video screen sharing and or audio, maybe Carrie, you can help me with if there are any questions in the chat that we can answer.
Yep, Cheryl's going to be able to help you with a couple of the questions that have been coming up with the chat. I can definitely let everybody unmute if they want to do that. But again, we have set it up so that video is not able to be turned on for everybody.
No worries. No
So
worries.
we'll
That's
just
fine.
do, audio. If you've got a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand. If you can't find that, you can either say something in the chat box or the Q&A box. And once you do that, I can come in around and unmute you.
Carrie, if you wanted to try and unmute, and if we end up kind of losing the connection, then we'll just switch it back off. But if you want to try, because Cathryn is in the US, we might be okay.
Okay.
If anyone
Well,
wants to do
while
that.
we're sorting that out.
I can unmute everybody, but they will still have to unmute their own microphones if they want to talk.
Yeah, if you guys want to do that and jump in, and if it becomes a mess or we just start losing fidelity, then we'll switch it back off. And I hope you understand. I just don't want to deny anyone the opportunity if that's what Cathryn wants to do. Cathryn, I will tell you, I've been fielding off a few sort of questions, and a number of them is people want a copy of the PDF version of your PowerPoint. I've shared your email address. If you could also, and if it's possible, I don't know what your day looks like today, but send that to us today. We will make sure everybody automatically gets a copy of it who attended today.
Sure, that would be fine.
Okay, great. And if you have also just the PDF of the festivals, that was something that was very popular as well.
Oh, okay, yeah, that is in the article. So, and I'd be happy to provide all of that because, again, I absolutely love the Caribbean. It's so underrated, and I want all of you to recognize that you're going to a microcosm of the world, and you're going to a place that's really, really deep with history. And I think as divers, we owe it to ourselves to be more immersive than just the underwater portion of it. So I really want to push that very hard. Also, I want to let you know that the Caribbean is doing probably one of the best jobs of managing COVID-19. The Caribbean nations are locking down. And when you're a small island nation and you've got 5,000 people or you've got 40,000 people, it's a lot easier to make people do the things that they're supposed to do. So I think that looking at, I've got access to the disease numbers in the Caribbean from some media outlets. The disease numbers are really low in large parts of the Caribbean. They're going to be able to open up faster than some other parts of the world. Keep in mind when you're traveling, you're going to have a lesser time in the air, in airplanes, and fewer connecting flights. So your safety is increased there. And also, if you need to get home for a reason, you're not a 13-hour flight and 20 other flights away from home. You can go to the Caribbean now safer and easier than you can most places that we will be looking at in the far off Asian countries. So just not that I don't love Indonesia and the Philippines and Australia, but closer to home is really cool right now. So let's get back to questions. Anybody?
Yeah, I got one for you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Gary.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great.
I posted it in the chat as well, but this is just as easy. And I'm just curious, what are some of your favorite islands? Excluding the diving. What are some of your favorite islands?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. Well, obviously I'm a St. Thomian. I practically born here. I lived in St. Thomas for many years, so it will always be my root flag of the Caribbean because I have so many friends there. My second favorite is probably Dominica. Dominica is just close to my heart because it's a place where I used to go hang out. When I owned a dive center in the Virgin Islands, Dominica was where I went to get away from every place. And I would just really go climbing and tromping around in the rivers and go do hikes so that I wasn't diving. But so I love it. So Dominica's there. And then I love all of the Bahamas with a great passion. So I hope that answers it. Oh, and Turks and Caicos too, even though they're not technically in the Caribbean. I volunteered to work on an archaeological dig there many years ago. And
very cool.
That was super rewarding, which leads me to tell you there are a whole lot of volunteer opportunities in the islands. And I didn't mention service clubs like Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions. All of those organizations have some, in your town, there's somebody in Rotary or Kiwanis or Lions, and maybe it's you, but those groups all have Caribbean counterparts, and you can offer to carry your local club's pin or flag and present it to a Caribbean one. You don't have to be a member of the club in order to do that, and it's a great way. I've had Rotarians meet me at the airport and take me to their house or to their place of business, and I definitely recommend doing that sort of personal outreach.
Well, you know what? That was very good comment too, because I'm looking to retire this year potentially, and there may be a lot more volunteering in my future. Although with the coronavirus, I'm kind of debating whether I should stay working.
I would volunteer in a heartbeat.
Well, if you have the opportunity to do some volunteer activity, I can help you with that. I can point Cheryl to some opportunities that I have vetted, and particularly through the service organizations where you'll meet good people and they'll take really good care of you. And actually the government of the Bahamas does a great job with that. They have a one-on-one where you get to go sit with some old granny and cook food and talk story, and it's really beautiful. So
Thank you so much.
thank you. All right, who's next?
Cathryn?
Yes, hello.
Hello there. I just wanted to say thanks for this presentation. Plus, I'd like to, I'm glad you pointed out that to visit the locals and stuff. And that's something I've been doing for several years just because I like to visit people. I'd sit in a park, talk to the elderly people sitting there and just visit with them. It was just a lot of fun.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And it reminds me of a story I want to share just really quickly. I used to work for a time with U.S. Virgin Islands Fish and Wildlife. It's part of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And my job was to go into schools, and particularly in the pre-K and kindergarten schools, to do some presentations. And this might be surprising, but this was only 25 years ago. And in a lot of instances, going into these schools, I did my little song and dance and talk to the kids, and then I would sit on the floor and let them come around me. And a lot of these little kids had never gotten close to a white person, and they never touched a white lady's hair, or they would touch, I have freckles, and they would touch my freckles and scratch at them a little bit, or play with my fingernails because the whites of my fingers were slightly different than theirs. And we compared the palms of our hands and what pigment looks like. That was one of the richest experiences I've ever got to have, is really just touching and hugging and laughing and smiling with people. That made it for me in terms of getting to do that job. So that's what volunteering will allow you to do. It will get you close to people that you might not have access to in other ways, and they might not have access to people like you. And that's where the richness lives. So I'm talking too much, so let's take some more questions. Anybody? Come on, there's 100 of you here.
There's lots of people out there with their mics unmuted, so go ahead, guys. Don't be shy. And you're all unmuted our end, so just double check and make sure if you're trying to talk and you can't be heard.
What's the best place to go shore diving?
Ooh, shore diving, good question. Hands down, Bonaire has got it going for shore diving because they have set up their island for the drive-through, drive-by, drive-in dive. So that's number one. Also, there are a lot of places in the Bahamas that have accessible shore sites. Some places in the Virgin Islands have accessible shore sites, and the Cayman Islands has some good shore diving as well. And just in general, just the general diving, I made a few notes I was going to mention here. Typically, you got warm, clear water, a 3 mil wetsuit. I always wear a full suit, and I typically wear a 3 mil wetsuit, and then I bring accessories like a vest and a hood that I can add or take off as I need it. Depth ranges in the Caribbean are from shore diving shallow to super deep. Practically every island in the Caribbean is going to be accessible for divers of all skill levels. About the only exception to that, I think, would be Saba, and maybe Cheryl can back me up on that. Saba, just because of the depths, you'll probably want to have an advanced open water certification and probably also nitrox. But for the beginner diver, the Caribbean is where it's at. And most of the boat dives are within a 30-minute boat ride from shore. So you're not going out all day. The exception to that might be Belize. If you're coming from the mainland to the outer reefs, those are big day trips. So anybody else?
Cathryn, I've got Carrie-Ann Melendez, I think. She doesn't have a microphone, but she's got a question in the Q&A. She said, we have a nonprofit Adapt Able Foundation, and we're always looking for wheelchair accessible sites. Are you aware of a list of accessible resorts or locations?
I'm not aware of a current one, but I can help find that for you and get it to you. Some of the adapted scuba organizations are probably going to have that on their websites. Dive Heart is the first one that comes to mind, Jim Gattaker's organization. I will tell you that most of the islands are not able to do a really great job on accessibility simply because of their geological structure. A lot of these islands are very hilly. That makes it a bit of a challenge with accommodation. And they also, some of the islands that, particularly the US Virgin Islands, has it down because of the ADA. So if you go to the US Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico, you're probably better off. But some of the islands that are independent nations don't have the budget to make accessibility really widely available. And also, there's not a law that forces them to. So that's where it's best to get with the independent operator and ask those questions. And also certainly Cheryl and her team can help with that. But I'll do what I can. I'll look around a little bit and see if I can find a good resource for you and provide that. Again, my email address is in the chat, c2@c2g2productions.com.
Cathryn, I'm going to jump in real quick because we've got a couple of different questions about the in-water sperm whale experience in Dominica. I don't know if you've done it. One thing I will tell people is, yes, it can be very, very difficult to get that permit. We've worked on getting permits before, and it normally takes an organization, somebody very special to get those permits. They're highly limited. But I wanted to jump in here because we have actually been offered a space. It's only 9 people for 2 weeks this August, going with Fort Young, and it doesn't need to be with an organization. Individuals can jump on it. It's not cheap. It takes, right now, I think it's about $13.50 for a week of hotel regular diving and breakfast at Fort Young on Dominica for a standard week. With this permit and some time in the water with the sperm whales, it's taking it up to something like $3,700, which almost all that massive difference is the permit, because the permit is both expensive and highly limited. But there are a few opportunities if Dominica is an option this August for you to do that.
I would jump on that, and that's a bargain at twice the price, because when you're in the water with sperm whales, when they're sleeping, it's the coolest thing you've ever seen. And when you're in the water, when they're active, and the young calves are typically super inquisitive. So chances are they're going to come right up to you, which is exhilarating and terrifying all at once. But if you have a chance to do one of those trips, if it's with Fort Young, that's awesome. Very reputable. And certainly if you're doing it on a permitted trip, then everything's going to be done correctly. Dominica is doing a great job of protecting that resource, and I would say go for it. Same thing with Dominican Republic humpback tours. There are several organizations that are running very reputable humpback tours, and that would be probably January to April off the Dominican Republic, off the Silver Banks. That one I've done a few times, and it's always a big winner. Anybody else? Okay, let's take one. We have Stephanie Richardson with a hand up.
Hi, Cathryn. I just
Hello.
want to recommend, if anybody has the chance to take that trip, you're right. It's a deal well worth the cost. My spouse and I were there New Year's 2 years ago, and we did see a pod of whales sleeping. It is whale Stonehenge, and the most incredible thing you can ever see in your lifetime.
Yeah.
So if you folks jump on that opportunity.
And when you get the opportunity to spend time in the water with a big animal, it is what I call the cosmic reset button, because every bad day you ever had leading up to that moment is deleted. And the world stops, and the next breath you take, the world starts again, and everything's better. I've had the opportunity to have this experience a number of times, and I feel brand new every time I've had a big animal encounter. So I definitely recommend it. So we've only got a couple more minutes here. Stephanie Littman was asking, where do I get the snorkeling permit? You don't get the permit, you go with a permitted group. So there will be a permit holder. If you're diving under permit, there will be a main permit holder. They have a number of permits, and they will allow you in on that. So Cheryl and her team can probably answer that in a little more detail.
Yeah, we're running out of time, so I can't get into that. That's exactly right. You've got to have an organization that qualifies to get the permit and charter the boat, and then you have to find an organization that has spaces that are willing to share that space with you. And that's what I'm saying. This is an extremely unique opportunity. If anybody wants to email us at info@deepblueadventures.com, I'll also make sure it's on our sharing folder that goes out to you as well. And I will say that under this climate, it is for this August. Fort Young and Dominica are being very flexible on terms. I don't know what will quite happen with that permit if you still can't get to Dominica in August, but we'll work through that. If anybody's interested, please let us know.
Excellent. And just, I want to do 2 plugs. One is for Cheryl and her crew. Don't plan your travel without them, especially right now. They do a whole lot more than just book a ticket and book a resort. They work so hard behind the scenes for you. Don't go on a trip without them. And I'm going to make a shameless plug for my book, because if we were doing this in an auditorium setting, I'd have these at the back of the room available for sale. Ocean Metaphor, Unexpected Life Lessons from the Sea is really good medicine right now, because it takes a photo of various marine creatures and offers you the opportunity to see what they're like, what their life is like, and it gives you a bit of a life lesson on how we can be, those are upside down on purpose, how we can be better people by learning from the marine creatures. So there's a life lesson in all of it, and someone who stayed all the way to the end gets a free one of these right now. All you need to do is put your email in the comments, and I think Carrie's going to be responsible for picking our winner, but put your email in the comments. Certainly email me.
There it is. It's Holly Gerberich.
Holly Gerberich was the big winner. And if you want an autographed copy, these are available on Amazon, and I think they're on sale on Amazon right now. Just go to amazon.com, look up Ocean Metaphor. But if you'd like to buy an autographed copy, I have ones available right now, and they're going for $25. This is the paperback version, not the hardback version. $25, including shipping and handling, for an autographed copy.